Hello, everybody. We're bringing you Block Digest number 95 at block height 521,359. And I'm not even going to go with the date today because I'll probably mess it up like last time. But that clip is definitely how I think Mr. Martin felt inside at this this blockchain hearing in Parliament in the UK. But
yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. Was that Mr. Walker in that hearing? Because I know that you sent over some screenshots. He looked pretty damn frustrated in that.
Yeah. So I'm gonna dig impulsively for a meme real quick, but I am really kind of shocked at myself because the OG status in that Parliament room, I have to award to a banker, to a guy who literally spent his entire career in banking, because he was the only one who seemed to actually have even the slightest clue what the hell was going on in reality. So yeah, pretty much it was a representative of Ripple, somebody from the Everledger project, which if you're not familiar with, they kind of do like supply chain tracking for things like diamonds to kind of certify they're conflict free, and a woman from a university in the UK working on blockchain voting. But it's like I don't even know where to begin, so I'm just gonna dive in. Pretty much the Ripple representative was attempting to kind of paint this very positive picture of Ripple's technology helping a lot of banks as far as the back end systems with things like remittance payments or corporate to corporate payments that were really time sensitive. And he kept throwing out figures of like how many clients they have signed on and how much money that this was enabling these banks to save. And he was pretty much shortly after just completely eviscerated by Mr. Martin Walker, who hilarious enough, actually now works for a nonprofit whose goal is to kind of stop management from making stupid decisions and kind of getting them to make their decisions more based off of evidence than just kind of this is my read of this cursorily, so here's a decision. And he literally broke down the entire logic behind a lot of the inefficiencies in the banking system, which pretty much just boiled down to not being on the same page as far as how you handle like different information formatting and communication of that information. And it was really like this one other panel member eviscerated all three of the other people there more than any of the MPs did. And he pretty much broke down the fact that when you're looking at kind of a centralized permission system, there really is no material difference between just a regular database and a blockchain. And when you just go stuffing blockchains into something, it's just adding more complexity and not really fixing anything. And that a lot of the problems that things like Ripple are trying to solve can be just as easily solved by, stepping back, getting your shit together, and getting on the same page as far as like how you are storing and formatting information and handling it in communication between different parties. And he also went into kind of Ripple's justification for the XRP token at all is the air quote bridge currency, where you use that as the trading pair between the fiats you're trying to move from, as kind of the liquid thing that you can always get a pair and move through, which is kind of the role the US dollar has fulfilled for decades in the economy. And he kind of pointed out how laughable it is to have this token where more than 50% of it is controlled by a single corporation used as the basis for like this kind of liquidity provisioning when it literally will just crash 80%, fly up 100% again in the course of like a month or two. And you really have no guarantee of that liquidity not drying up. Like the dollar is used in this role in the banking system because it's literally maintained that liquidity, that importance in global trade for decades. And there is absolutely no indication whatsoever that something like Ripple can actually, not only build up, but maintain that liquidity to fulfill that kind of role. And he really, like, I'm going to just kind of sum up the rest as quick as I can, or I'm going to be here rambling for 20 minutes. But he really kind of just like eviscerated like everybody else on this panel. Like the Everledger guy, whose entire product is effectively like, we'll take this diamond and kind of ID it physically and tie it to a blockchain so you can identify it and track it. Well, as he admitted himself in the hearing, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't actually have some basis of trust or an ability to audit people who are actually putting information into a system like that, it like the whole system doesn't work. It's worthless. And whether you're putting that into a conventional database or a blockchain, it doesn't matter. It's that data entry that is the core problem you need to solve as far as maintaining the integrity of a system like that. And then the lady who is talking about blockchain voting, like I don't even know where to start. Like she was trying to sell Parliament in the hearing on using it for parliamentary votes because you can just drop that in right now, as there's no need for privacy or obfuscating everything because all votes in Parliament and similar bodies are already public and you know who's voting for what. But like she made an offhand comment about wanting to kind of take a vote system on a blockchain and not push the votes to the blockchain until they're all tallied and counted. But like, what's the fucking point of that? Then you have no guarantee of what's actually getting pushed into the blockchain. Not to mention the problems of key distribution, of malware on devices, because, hey, like it doesn't matter if you can actually solve that huge problem of getting a key to a legal voter. If they go home, jump on their computer that's completely compromised and their votes changed before it's actually submitted, wow, you've accomplished nothing and just made undermining the voting process even easier. But I mean, it's like I just feel weird inside that I'm looking at the guy from the banking system in this hearing as the OG, as the guy who didn't have his head up his ass. And like, honestly, I really don't know how to feel about that, except I really want to start watching Parliament more just because it's entertaining and hilarious.
Yeah, I caught about the first 30 minutes of it, and yeah, that Walker guy definitely felt like he knew what he was talking about. And those Ripple guys like pretty much immediately were into everything blockchain, and he was really talking about how this base technology and store value and value transfer, it's got like a lot of stuff where people just jump in there and want to hype where it could go, but really, we still haven't gotten that far. And yeah, it's one of those things too, where it's like, to me, it's just like, I want to be like, it's interesting. I want to watch Parliament about it just because it's like weird seeing, crypto being discussed in Parliament. Like, this is the time we're in right now where, we're hearing Senate hearings and Parliament hearings. And yeah, it's honestly like, to me, it's a good thing that this banker knows a lot about it. I mean, it's one of those things where maybe like people are getting educated in the space. I mean, we're got some stories a little bit later about banks and Bitcoin, and it seems like some people actually have their heads screwed on right. So it's good to see one of those guys in Parliament, and even if he is representing the banks, at least he understands what's going on and how the system really isn't, that much more efficient than the SWIFT system they've got right now. And yeah, you could see that annoying look on his face right there as Ripple is being discussed. And yeah, it's just one of those things where I think after this timeline of all this alt craziness, like I think Ripple pretty much takes one of the bags as far as just being like absolutely crazy in the sense as far as trying to pitch itself as being this decentralized system. And, you know, I just think that's just where, you know, we're going to see these guys that are kind of the most prolific in the space as far as these alts with their, you know, with what they're doing and what they're saying. I think we'll start to see them getting pulled up in front of these hearings. I know we talked about the SEC and Ethereum, so here's the Parliament and Ripple. So yeah, it was interesting. I might go back and watch the whole thing if I can.
Yeah, like that screenshot there was the look on his face when the Ripple representative was attempting to claim that Ripple Labs has absolutely nothing to do with the XRP token. I mean, the people involved in Ripple Labs didn't create this token. They didn't print it all out of thin air. And then they didn't all just give the vast majority of it to this company they incorporated after the fact to create some kind of phony legal shielding for printing all of these tokens out of thin air. That's totally not what happened. It's okay. And I mean, like, there was even an MP who literally, like, like, this whole thing is so fucking hilarious to me. He literally looked at the Ripple representative after breaking down like the gist of what they were doing for banks, and he was just like, so something like Bitcoin is more like Android, whereas like you being Ripple are more like Apple, a centralized, closed, controlled ecosystem. I mean, it's just like,
sorry, man.
Like I said, or sorry, I just feel so weird. It's like this banker who works for a nonprofit to encourage CEOs to not make stupid decisions. Like, I'm rooting for him. It's like, yes, like, okay, I disagree with his opinions on Bitcoin. For instance, he thinks public chains need some group or entity to be accountable for them, and I disagree with him on that. But aside from that, it's like every word out of his mouth was just 100% dead on. Like, all of this stuff outside of the narrow application of a public decentralized currency are things that have existed for decades. And it's literally just buzzword bonanza going around in the financial sector.
Yeah, I guess, you know, that kind of thing could get you in trouble in the long run. You keep doing that long enough.
What is this blockchain?
Well, they're figuring it out. I mean, like, you know, this guy, like what you're saying, it's like a lobby put together to, you know, help CEOs figure this stuff out. So, hey, got these people out there, they're figuring it out, hopefully.
And a Scottish like MP literally asked him like point blank, like, what is the point of Ripple? Like, what's its purpose?
Yeah, I'm conflicted also because I obviously think these guys are bad guys, but man, yeah, Ripple is just so dumb. So it's two bad guys fighting to me, and at least if Ripple has taken some hits, it'll be nice to watch. It's the amount of stupidity in the space has got to come down. I'd almost rather, like, after I don't know if we have if we're going to talk about it later, but I'd almost rather we were fighting with like MPs and people that at least can kind of seem, you know, they're evil, but at least I don't feel like I'm just rolling around like in urine, you know, fighting some idiot like Vitalik or Satoshi or you know, fake Satoshi or fake Satoshi Light or whatever. I almost rather fight guys that are a little bit. I won't be as embarrassed with myself to argue about guys like that.
Yeah. I think I get where you're coming from. You're talking about just like arguing with the courts or arguing with like characters like that. I think I would rather be arguing.
Yeah, I mean, these politicians, they're bad guys for sure, but I don't know. At least they do a good job of seeming respectable. But maybe I'm just so sick of talking to people about like Ripple that I'd rather fight with Stalin right now than than these freaking crap coiners.
Oh, speaking of Stalin, that reminds me. Happy birthday, Karl Marx.
Oh my goodness. Wow, I didn't know. Is that true?
Yeah, I honestly, I would rather argue with the socialist. Like it's the same, kind of tired stuff, but at least it's a little bit more intelligent than the stuff that you have to deal with when you're just hearing again and again how Litecoin is responsible for SegWit.
Oh yeah,
Just
man,
put this man in the room, and he will handle it like the fucking OG he is.
Shit, already, there's a great meme right there. No, yeah, I get what you're saying, man. Like I was watching a little bit of we'll talk about later, the ETH conference in Toronto, and it was like just some of the slides and some of the presentations. It really felt like, it's like just all these guys that are kind of like leaders at a Burning Man, like cult, like a tribe at Burning Man, where it's just like a bunch of people that talk about great things and mysterious things and how it's all going to come together in this amazing fashion, but they don't ever really hit the technicals on stuff. And it's just like that can be super aggravating when you're coming from a technical background like yourself, I imagine.
Oh yeah, when are we gonna showcase the really weird badger mushroom dance that they did?
I was gonna save it for
that later.
But
that's the goofball.
I think we should show it now. Yeah, we need to show it now. It couldn't illustrate the emotion.
Guys, I need to switch over my audio input because the sound is required to appreciate the full level of stupid.
All right, well, like little background. This is like a EthCon in Toronto, and this is the first beginnings of it. This is what hypes everybody up.
And just so you know, it's not just like some random people. Like Vitalik is up there, and Joseph Poon is on the right, and it exactly illustrates why I would rather fight with socialists right now.
Uno momento. I hate Firefox and its different things. Ah, boy.
Hurry up, man! Come on! What the hell? We're live here.
You need to throw some RAM in there.
We're live, and we're about to waste people's time with a really stupid thing.
This is shameful. The stress level is just building as the moments go on.
Yep.
Well,
that's all right. Just show the screenshot. That's good enough, man.
Yeah, I mean, like you can see right there, they all got their hands spread out. There's a cartoon badger behind them. I could tell you, I could do the song right now. It's just badger, 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 mushroom, mushroom, badger, 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 mushroom. That's it. And it's like it's from 2009, and it's like I don't know. To me, it's like just like I was saying, it's evident of like there's some, I don't know, some craziness over there where it's like, how does the introduction of a conference that's supposed to be about, technical scientific stuff that's breaking disruptive technology in the future. It's just, here we go. Well, I'm telling you, they're trying to hide it. If you search Badger Dance, you can see it. Like the day it came out, like I actually went to the stream and went all the way to the beginning so I could catch the whole thing, the introduction of it and everything. Later, the stream was reset to where you couldn't go back because the beginning was like them all sitting before a quiet stage talking about how's this going to change the world, da-da-da. And then the last frame said, we have to have faith. And then the Badger Dance. And, and now, you can't really, I don't know. Maybe you can go back and catch the whole stream now. I need to go back and see. But it seemed like that day they sort of stopped and restarted on purpose.
Yeah, that's very cultish.
And I also want to point out the tweet of the GIF was made by Omizgo, the OMG token on Ethereum, which is one of the only ICOs that Vitalik is actually advising. He made this promise, I think it was sometime in June last year, where he said he wasn't going to be an advisor for any ICOs except for this one. This one's okay. So this event actually wasn't even an oh my god or OMG thing. It was an Ethereum conference, and the OMG account just tweeted it out. So yeah, this wasn't a token conference. This was an Ethereum thing. And I was like, oh crap, this is embarrassing. And someone even commented below that. It's like, oh, why did you post this? Don't you think it was embarrassing enough that people had to sit and watch this in person?
And they kept trying to get everybody else to come up. You know, they're like kind of like the Craig Wright thing where they were clapping. You know, it was like they were like, "Come on, you could stand up and do the Badger dance too." And yeah, it's like a little embarrassing. And I don't know, like you're saying, it's one of those things where when I first saw it, I was like, "Oh, they got like a crowd of cheerleaders to try and cheer this thing on." And then like when I went back and reversed it, watched the whole thing, I was like, "Holy crap, that's Vitalik on stage. These look like developers. What is this? Like these guys agreed to this? They agreed to this."
Well, dude, it's they have nothing. Like they have no roadmap, they have no feasible scaling plan, they have no rational appreciation of the issues that they're fucking dealing with. And like, yeah, I know this wasn't, I don't know, some we were planning on going in depth in, but it's like that whole like last panel that I watched with all of the developers, like Vlad, Joseph. Well, Joseph's not really a developer, but and Vitalik, like it was a circle jerk. Like there was not any actual substance to their discussion. Well, we need trade-offs between decentralization and convenience. Okay, well, what are they? What are you looking at as optimal ways? Like what are your mechanisms here? Like they need to have proper penalty systems for the second layers to actually have them soundly interact with the first layer. Okay, well, what are the mechanics behind that? Like all I heard was hand waving. Like you'll just go back to chain and things will be fine. Like there was no actual substance to anything they were saying. They were just circle jerking, going, "Yeah, we have problems and trade-offs to make, and yeah, we have trade-offs and problems to deal with." And no actual concrete proposal, no actual solution, no actual discussion about how to mechanically implement things, or the problems with different ways to actually implement things. Like it's a joke. Like it's literally just like, let's get the crowd all excited and then they'll keep riding along and we'll just pull a fucking rabbit out of our ass later.
Well, let me ask you this. What could you use Ethereum for right now? What could it actually do?
Scamming people.
You can get a bunch of money locked up in a wallet.
Yeah, even CryptoKitties. You can't even do CryptoKitties on Ethereum, right? It's in a database. It's not even like, it literally can do nothing. It can't do what colored coins can do. It can't do what Counterparty can do. Whatever thing that's not really all that needed that it's actually been hyped up for, you could have done on Bitcoin, and it can't do the thing that it says it can do. So I don't.
You can get a super expensive London apartment and have a lawyer follow you around and say, "Don't talk to me, talk to my lawyer first."
Yeah, you could participate in that.
Where is Vinay Gupta doing this Badger dance? I want to see Vinay Gupta.
Yeah, dude, I didn't say.
Oh wait, but unfortunately, I guess if they had asked him to do the Badger dance, they would have made the lawyer do it first. Oops.
I bet you he's the one who said, like, we should do this Badger dance.
Vinay, go up there and bring your biker gang with you.
Is it possible these guys have enough money now to where they're just going to let this thing fade away and we're not going to have to deal with it anymore? Wouldn't that be great?
That's entirely what it seems like to me. Like they're not actually fixing anything. They're like, I mean, like, for fuck's sake, the guy working on Raiden, like their equivalent of the Lightning Network, is literally the guy who coded the DAO, the thing that fucking imploded and just was a giant shit show that split the currency in half and caused chaos for months. But he conveniently left that out of his past accomplishments. Like there was literally one developer trying to explain something and just bumbling so bad at doing so. He literally went, "Vitalik, I can't really convey this properly. Can you explain it, Vitalik?" Well, if you're a developer working on the core protocol of something and you cannot articulate a technical detail or situation or dynamic that you're supposedly working on, what the fuck are you doing working on it? Like if you cannot convey something in your own words, then you don't understand it.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Vitalik take his exit and just like a further, attempt to try and, I don't know. I saw something from him where it's like recently tweeted about the ETH and ETC needs to come together. So I don't know. It seems like he's kind of all over the place recently, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's getting ready to take his exit to try and just, like we're saying, it's an evolving thing. It's like they started off as this one thing, and then they changed into another thing, and now it's ICOs, and it's like they're trying to make a case that you can have a pre-sale because it's it's a new technology and you don't know where it's going to go, and where we are now is not where we started. I could see them making this whole case here coming up whenever they're going to be, under that SEC microscope.
Yeah, the only reason I can think of to continue the scam at this point is that until the price drops, you're not going to have a bunch of people that are suing you. So like what you see with Ripple, now that the price has dropped, there's people that are suing and saying, "Oh, I lost money," and that gets the machinery of the government really rolling at you. As long as the Ponzi scheme is screaming and improving, there's those mechanisms don't really kick in. So hopefully they will soon though.
With that mention, you want to segue into the Ripple lawsuit, Ginny?
Yeah, getting attacked from all sides. This one is from the U.S. Let me pull up, have the lawsuit open. So it's a one person who is filing a class action lawsuit on behalf of anyone else who feels they were defrauded or misled by Ripple Labs. But the main plaintiff is Ryan Coffey. He should really redo his name to Cafefe or something, because that would make it more funny. Ryan Coffey, I think it said where he lived. I can't remember where his residency is. I think it's California. No, they just said where his state of residence was. He's somewhere in the U.S. I think he's like West Coast. Anyway, his name is Ryan Coffey. And basically his story in brief is that he bought, I think, somewhere around $1,200 worth of Ripple in January, when it was at about $2.70, the price. And then he sold about 10 days later when the price dropped to like $1.70 or something. I can't remember the exact numbers, but he is filing this complaint, and it's pretty good complaint because it gives a pretty comprehensive history of Ripple, including the more recent event where Ripple Labs was found to have attempted to bribe Coinbase and Gemini to list XRP on their exchanges for $100 million, which is pretty bad. But the thrust of the complaint is to argue that XRP is a security because it is dependent on, as what they call, the technical, entrepreneurial, and managerial efforts of Ripple Labs. So that makes it more easy to classify as a security, because it's not just an independent cryptocurrency that's being developed by diverse and decentralized group of people, or managed in any way. There's, I think it's page 18 of the complaint. They say, like miners in Bitcoin and Ethereum, these trusted nodes, which is what Ripple uses, validate transactions. However, unlike those miners in Bitcoin and Ethereum, the trusted nodes are either selected or controlled by Ripple Labs itself. Ripple Labs provides its own default and recommended UNL, currently comprised of only 5 Ripple Labs hosted nodes. So they point out that so the trusted nodes are also, I guess, mining nodes in Ripple, although they're like mining nodes, but they're not mining any more XRP, because that was another point they make, is that it's not like Bitcoin and Ethereum where they're mined. All of the tokens were released and created all at once by Ripple Labs a few years ago. And so the whole incentive structure is different. And so let me see. I think it's the same section. It says, although Ripple Labs claims it plans to decentralize the network, it admits that it will only remove its own trusted nodes if it decides that other validator nodes are reliable, reputable, stable, and secure. Ripple Labs' view of decentralization of the XRP ledger still involves Ripple Labs maintaining full control over the ledger and deciding who owns and operates any third-party trusted nodes. So not only do they rely on trusted nodes, which is a different consensus mechanism to Bitcoin and Ethereum, they also decide who those trusted nodes will be. And right now they basically control all of them. So not very decentralized at all. They even cite research from BitMEX, with regards to whether Ripple is decentralized, and BitMEX's conclusion, if you guys remember, was no, it's not. It really isn't. And on page 20 of the complaint, there's like a number of citations. They cite a lot of tweets actually, because part of their argument is that XRP was marketed in a particular way to suggest that it was a security, because like Shinobi said, they were making this argument that XRP and Ripple Labs are not at all related, but they clearly are, because on March 5th, 2015, so 3 years ago, a Ripple software engineer, Nick Bogalis, posted a tweet, I think something he retweeted, defending investing in XRP by stating, "So you'd invest in Linux, not Microsoft, in Usenet, not Google, in MySQL, not Oracle. Good luck with your portfolio. Ripple is the next Google. You're stuck in the silly idea that a company can't build a digital asset even when it does this right under your nose." So they are saying, like, he is talking about a digital asset of a company, and he was saying this with regards to whether it was smart to invest in Ripple or invest in XRP. We have to separate those two because people keep mixing Ripple and XRP. The Ripple is the network, XRP is the token. So yeah, this complaint is pretty big, and I think I do want to check where. I don't think they have it looks like they're doing it out of San Francisco. Yeah, so I guess that's where they're going to be filing it if they actually go to court. But so far, I think this is just the first complaint. So it's the first complaint in a class action lawsuit.
Yeah, I mean, that BitMEX research was pretty spot on. And, you know, that's going into pretty good detail there as to all the problems there with that. And I mean, yeah, I mean, like what the conclusion is that Ripple sold an unlicensed security, or is that I think that was what I read or something as far as the conclusion. And it's just, yeah, I don't know. This is where it's like you burn enough people, you're going to burn somebody, even if it's just $1,200 that might have the right connections to really, you know, lay down a lawsuit and get the wording all right to where, yeah, you know, you're in Parliament one day and now you're getting faced with this class action lawsuit. They're definitely under some duress there, but I think, like, you know, the lawsuit states and the BitMEX research and everything we know, I think it's all with good reason.
Yeah, so the reason they were making the argument that XRP is a security is because they want to tie it to Ripple Labs directly, because Ryan wants to actually seek compensation for damages for the value that he lost for buying Ripple at a high price and then selling it at a low price. He lost about $600, I think, because I think he bought like 600 tokens when they were about $1. So he didn't lose a huge amount of money, but enough that he wants to, in fact, yeah, it is kind of surprising because he didn't lose that much in terms of dollar value. So it's interesting that he's filing this class action lawsuit, because obviously he has to pay for lawyers to do this. So he's obviously like, I'm assuming he wants to get back more than he actually lost, because otherwise it wouldn't really make sense for him to file this unless he was doing it for an ideological reason. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I wonder how many other attorneys jump on this, and people, I mean, like, yeah, maybe it's just like a filler case, filling it out. I don't know. It's definitely, yeah, something there where, I don't know. I don't know. To me, I was just thinking, like, he's probably just a well-connected individual who, like, who probably knows somebody who's a lawyer who saw it and said, you know, like, oh man, I'm going to try and help you with this. And, you know, took it up right there. But I don't know. It could be that where it's just like, hey, look, these guys are doing this. I know they're doing this like most people do. Let's buy up, you know, an amount over 1,000. Let's sell it low and, you know, sue them and see who picks up. I don't know. It's one of those things where a lot of people in our space get aggravated because they see this stuff in courts and everything. And it's like, there's a lot of different incentives that go into this. And it's not people from us that are doing this. So, I mean, yeah, it's just, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it is a bunch of people just coming together to try and pull together some money there because they know they can win this case. Maybe.
I think
Yeah,
there's some
oh,
potential
sorry.
legs under this with Mr. Brian Kelly showing everybody how to buy Ripple at the top over the last holiday season.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, normally what happens with stuff like this is they will try to find the best possible complaint, like the easiest one to win. It doesn't matter whether it's $1,200 or not. It's just the facts are as clean as possible so that you have less to fight about when you're trying to make the case. So this guy having bought and then immediately sold and having a nice clear loss, and not having a bunch of other transactions mixed in or whatever, that makes sense. And what's interesting is that if it gets declared a security, then the floodgates open for everybody else, right? And this is like the pin that pops the bubble, because once you have precedent that, yes, we've declared this a security, everybody else that's lost money is going to line up for the feeding trough. So I think these guys are screwed. And then I think that also opens up the doors to fraud, because it's probably easier to prove it's a security than prove that these guys committed fraud. So you go after that first. But when these guys have clearly advertised that, hey, we're doing a deal with X, Y, and Z bank, and it's like Ripple Consulting and has nothing to do with the Ripple token, but it results in an obvious pop in price, and it's like clear to any jackass that the reason they're doing that is that they're trying to give the impression that Ripple is being used by banks. Like, I don't see how these guys are not going to eventually go down for it.
Yeah, that was also mentioned, that because it's kind of a double-edged sword for them, because for them to say that Ripple is going to be adopted by banks and that they're part of the whole marketing campaign to the banks saying they should use XRP, that is another, just even if it's completely bogus and the banks aren't actually using it, the fact that Ripple Labs is actively involved in promoting XRP to banks is another reason to think that they're, very well connected. And I think it was actually pointed out in the claim that because I think there's a bunch of people in the claim that they're not directly named, but they're basically people who are involved with Ripple Labs. And I think they said in total, the people involved in Ripple Labs have made about $350 million in the last year. I can't remember. If you look up 350 million Shinobi, you might find that. I can't remember. You want to show it? Just look up like 354 and it'll probably come up.
Not seeing it. Let me try millions. And everybody's tuned in to watch Shinobi or not watch Shinobi fumble around for something in an article as usual. Well, there we go. I got it.
All right, there it is.
Yeah, 342 million. Okay, so the defendants, as in people at Ripple Labs, earned over 342 million through XRP sales in the last year alone. Yeah, XRP, which cost nothing to the defendants because they created it out of thin air. I love that part. They mentioned the thin air part several times to be like, just created something out of nothing.
Well, it wasn't too long ago we saw those tweets where it was like, these guys are richer than Tesla because they own this much XRP. And it was like, we understood that it's like if they tried to sell all that, they would be screwed. And like, it's just like, yeah, I don't know. Like just the fact that they can make that much money off of this thing. I mean, like, yeah, I don't know, man, it's a mess. But I mean, like, I got a question for you, JW, about this whole thing. Cause like, people, you seem to be like a real free market guy. Like, and like, I know a lot of people's arguments like about these courts, and like you're saying, you'd rather argue with the court than some of these guys that are just like not going to take you on the technicals of things. Do you see this whole process of things going to court and stuff as part of the whole free market taken? Like, I mean, is this part of it?
Yeah. I mean, a court system is part of a free market. Like
even though our courts are, I'm just curious.
Yeah, even though our courts are really screwed up. Like I don't man, so our court system is super screwed up. But when we originally created court systems, they were not run by kings and they were not run by governments. They were run by coalitions of people that were working together to administer justice and try to avoid war and violence, right? So they evolved to be very effective and to minimize pain and suffering and to maximize restitution to victims. And they were flawed because humans are flawed. But that's the history of the court system. The kings in England, and in other places took over the court system and co-opted it because they were able to extract wealth out of it by monopolizing it. Just like they monopolized the post office, they monopolized the court system. And now it's just a disaster. But occasionally, it's like a broken clock is right twice a day. Occasionally they actually do punish bad people and fraudsters and criminals. And whether these guys are going to go down because it's a security, like obviously I think that's a weird law, right? Like it's a security. Well, where's the victim? It's not a crime unless there's a victim. So securities laws are stupid. But are they fraudsters? Yes, absolutely. So if they end up going to jail as fraudsters for breaking a law that shouldn't be illegal, I'm still going to be happy about it. But that's the nasty quagmire of a mess that our legal system is right now. But Ragnar tweeted out something that was really interesting. I think that's how you say his name. And basically he said, this is a really bad time to piss off people with untraceable electronic digital cash, because we will have a free market legal system emerging again as we slough off all of this corruption. And being a fraudster right now, you better calculate that in. So even if the Ripple guys get off with a slap on the wrist or something, it doesn't mean that people that weren't legitimately screwed over by millions of dollars are not in 10 years going to have a functional justice system to drag their sorry asses before. And I don't think they're accounting for that at all, because that just sounds like crazy talk. But if you understand history, you realize that this level of corruption of a legal system is not, it's not typical, and it's probably very short-lived.
I think you nailed that with the broken clocks right twice a day. And, that's, I don't know. It's like, I see it as like, you take what tools you can get. I just like, I guess there is some back and forth there as far as just like whether a securities law should exist. And, is it really like, because I hear this argument, which I kind of agree with, is like people don't have avenues to invest in things right now if you're in this lower socioeconomic status of things. And I kind of agree with that. But it's like, in the meantime, we do have all these people getting scammed. So I'm kind of like just curious how your thoughts were. I think that's a good way to put it. Just like, a broken clock is right twice a day at some point.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. And I kind of wanted to like wind back a little bit and kind of tie into like some of the similarities between what's put forth in this filing and also the hearing in the UK Parliament. Is like one of the big issues that was brought up by one of the MPs is like the entire business model that Ripple Labs is trying to establish around XRP, with the rationale that like the entire point of it is to have that liquidity bridge between like different currencies to be able to do faster, cheaper international transactions. And like, aside from the fact that they literally just printed this money out of thin air and obfuscated that, making the company after the fact, and that's pretty much a huge part of their revenue. One of the Scottish MP's questions was, what did they think was going to happen if this did succeed? And this niche that they're trying to create for Ripple was fruitful. Like, it did become widely used as this like bridge currency to kind of match liquidity for wirings. How governments would feel about a private company owning more than 50% of the supply of this token that presumably could become the backbone of liquidity in terms of wiring money around that the US dollar currently fulfills. And I mean, like, even like these people in Parliament who are frankly like usually completely out of touch with technology are like, are you kidding me? Like, do you seriously think that governments of the world will just let you as a private company operate this centralized system, owning the majority of the supply while underpinning the entire world economy? And I mean, it's quite clear, like, even like the government is looking at this now and starting to think like this is delusional, like over in the UK.
Yeah, and also to get back to the discussion about like investment and scams, I like the securities law is kind of weird because it's based on the assumption that if you have a lot of money, you're smart and you won't get scammed, which is not true at all. The rich people are getting scammed at a lot higher rates, but the reason that you don't see it is because they have a lot more money, and hence they can lose more money if they are getting scammed. They don't notice as easily. Whereas a person like, who doesn't really have a lot of savings, like most people in the United States do not even have, I think the amount was $500 in the bank. It's like 40% of Americans don't even have $500 in the bank as like an emergency fund. I don't know if it was 500 or 5,000. I think it might actually
start amount.
Yeah. So the idea, like, securities law is stupid in that way, where it assumes like, if you have a lot of money, that means you're good at investment. It's like, no, that doesn't make you good at investment. That just means that if you lose, it's not going to hurt as bad.
Right. So, on the other hand, they also encourage all of those same people to buy lottery tickets and to invest in Fortune, 5,000 companies or anything on the stock exchange.
But it's okay because it's like $5. Yeah, they're like, it's okay if you get scammed out of $5. Like, that's okay. That's not going to hurt you. But then there's like people who are putting in.
I mean, people don't do that. People spend a lot of money on lottery tickets.
Yeah, exactly.
People put their entire retirement savings, if they have anything, right? You're right. They have like $500 in the bank, but they're almost all negative net worth. And if they do have anything, it's in a 401k that's tied up in all of these scammy stocks and bonds. So it's definitely not for their best interest, but I agree.
I don't know. Maybe it's something to do with geographics, just because where I come from, and I'm thinking about where I came from. It's like they're everywhere. There's like check for loan, check for cash, and lottery tickets everywhere, and
high interest rate cars
everywhere on every corner. So it's like you're just bombarded by those bad decisions, and it kind of does lead towards that whole, just sort of like a negative feedback loop, to where you are sort of wasting what little funds you have, to where you don't really have funds to waste anymore, and then it's really hard to find an investment vehicle that could get you towards a savings.
But Rick, this $10 could be what gets me my millions.
Yes.
Let me just tell you, put that 10 in Bitcoin, you'll be better.
So I actually just looked it up. There's a couple of statistics. It was $500. It said 60. This is from a Forbes article. 63% of Americans don't have $500 in savings in the bank. A $500 surprise expense would put most Americans into debt. 40% of Americans have $500 or less. Oh, so that's two different. Yeah. So it's somewhere between 40 and 60% of Americans don't have $500 in savings if something happens and they need that much money. And apparently somewhere around 70% of Americans have less than 1,000. Yeah, so that's really bad.
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's like a nightmare scenario. Like, I mean, down there in places in this country, because it's like there's just a there was a education period where it's just like, debt's good, get into debt, get into buy all these houses that you can't afford, and just get into this terrible position. And I don't know. It's just a terrible situation where I think, I agree that people that are in these, socioeconomic positions, they should be allowed to invest in this, probably because they've been through this hurtful stage where they understand, it's hard to find something that isn't really a scam. If you could find it, it'd be a great thing to have something that you could hold on to and know that it'll be there, or more will be, it'll be worth more value whenever you do need it and everything. And I don't know. That's where it's like, I agree that there's definitely something that needs to be done there, where it just frees up people to invest. But I really don't. I don't know. I think that maybe this whole Ripple thing and everything is just sort of those guys are understanding you control over 50% of the supply. That's ridiculous. It's because we've been through over 30 years of this sort of mechanisms where it's obvious that these things aren't really sufficient when it's a sustainable system. So. Just bringing it all back, I guess, is I guess it's understandable that somebody like Ripple and their crew over there is getting so much scrutiny that they are, and that Ethereum's about to get it. It's because there is large amounts of the globe that's impoverished, and there's good amounts of this country that is supposedly a very wealthy country that's impoverished because of just so many scams. And it's so, like you're saying, it's this is one of the most corrupted times there are. I mean, and that's a true state. I mean, so it's just it's a heavy time right now, and I mean, like, yeah, I think these things, you know, as much as we might not want to see them quit, it's like it's just part of the whole process, I guess.
Right. And if you try to figure out like the root cause of this, the root cause is really just a bunch of dumb money, right? You've got a bunch of people that are adult children that have never had to make any investment decisions, and they've been indoctrinated. I mean, they, from the time they were 5 years old to the time they were 20 years old or 25 years old, they were taught that the government's going to take care of you. We have Social Security, we have Medicare, you know, you can you just do the right thing, put a little bit of money into a 401k, hand it off to somebody else because you're not smart enough to manage it, and they'll manage it. Well, they'll actually hand it off to somebody else that hands it off to somebody else. But that's the right thing to do. And they've never invested $200 in the gas station down the street and got burned. So they're just completely babes ready for the slaughter. And as long as the government is the one that does the slaughtering, everything's fine. If Ripple or Ethereum comes in and starts doing some slaughtering, then, you know, then the government gets pissed off about it. So there's no good guys in this whole thing, right? It's all victims and con men. But, you know, I'm not going to shed a tear if Ripple and Ethereum go down.
Yeah, they tell you don't save money, go into debt, and any money that you might think about saving, put it in 401ks. Like I'm a person, I've never been in debt once. I've purposely avoided going into debt, and it's actually extremely hard to do some things because there's a whole bunch of systems now, like bank accounts, getting apartments, a lot of things where you have to demonstrate a history of going into debt and paying it off and going into debt and paying it off. And it's like, well, what if I just don't want to go into debt and I just have money and I've saved it and here you go. Like, apparently that's not good enough. And it's just so weird that, like, as a person who has, you know, managed to avoid going into debt at all, that I'm somehow a weirdo that's like, well, we don't have a history of this, so we don't know if you're worth taking a risk on. It's like so stupid the way that it's all arranged.
Well, I mean, like, you know, JW, like, he gets pretty hardline about like political stuff sometimes, and you know, I feel let's just hold on. Let me finish. It's like, philosophically, I am in agreement with a lot of that. I just see things playing out differently in the real world. You know, like, for instance, like, I don't think Bitcoin is literally going to kill governments. I mean, it might collapse some, like, you know, things change in the world all the time. But I don't think Bitcoin is going to bring down the United States, bring down China. I think it's going to starve them until they get their shit together. Because that incentive pressure of, well, if you don't, then we're just going to keep starving you until you do die. The government is just people who work jobs in a giant bureaucratic machine. And eventually, when enough of those people start losing their jobs, when the vast majority of people still having jobs realize that's coming for them soon, that's really going to start changing their tune, I think. But, you know, like, when you come to just, I completely forgot where I was going.
No, that's all right. I mean, I know what you're saying.
What did you think? What did Janine just say to trigger me? I'm sorry, I got like
I was talking about how the system is set up that you go into debt very early and you basically spend your whole life paying it off, which I think is beyond stupid. Like, I was told recently that.
Okay, I'm sorry, I got it back.
Okay.
All right, like, you know, I disagree with a lot of how things are going to play out as far as JW's predictions, but as far as the ethical or philosophical argument that people are mentally bred into slavery, he is right. I mean, and that's like the perfect example you just gave there, Janine. And, you know, coming at it from a personal perspective, dealing with those problems yourself, it's like, what the fuck? This doesn't make sense. But when you step back and you look at how the entire economy functions on a large scale, it makes perfect sense. They need people to go into debt. That's how they print money. Like, that's how they get people generating this value and doing things for them. and then shuffling that money back into things like 401ks in the stock market, which fluff up the numbers when you have corporations taking 0 interest rate loans and buying their own stocks back, which in combination with all of the working debt slaves money flowing into things is what keeps that rallying. The entire thing is just an engineered farce. And I mean, it really does come down to it's to socially control people.
Yeah, just real quick, I was just like, I remember whenever I was going into college, they were like, yeah, you know, student debt's bad, but you need debt because you need to pay it back to build credit. So, you know, take on the debt.
Yeah, I was literally told recently that it would make more sense for me to just go into a bunch of debt because but a certain type of debt, because that debt was going to be like forgiven soon. Everyone's debt is going to be forgiven, and so I could get a bunch of free stuff. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I would rather just build my own survival island and wait for the collapse than go into debt.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what it is that I espouse that's so extreme that you guys are thinking, maybe it's not going to be that. But let me sum it up for you, my perspective, really simply. If you can opt out and keep your stuff, then I'm good with it, right? If you buy a piece of land and you have a house on it and you built the house and you're paying for security services and you're paying for police and you're paying for fire department, all that sort of stuff. And then you can say, all right, I don't want to participate anymore. I want to opt out, but nobody's going to burn my house down and I get to keep my land. And no, I don't have to be able to drive on your roads, right? Or whatever, right? I have all kinds of problems that may be created from that. But if I have the right to do that, then I wouldn't complain about any government. So if that's extreme, the idea that you could choose not to participate in something, then that's extreme.
Okay, let me rephrase that. You come off kind of extreme. Like I feel like there's like a perception when you're less clear in your statements that like everything will just burn and people will solve everything themselves. And it's like I see a much more gradual just shifting in the larger scale social incentives, because I mean, like that personally, that is the biggest lesson I have taken away from Bitcoin. And I think it is universally applicable to everything, is it all comes down to incentives. And, you know, that's why people in certain groups or interests, like find themselves in social circles and so on and so forth, because they're incentivized in a number of different ways to like, I'm going to go participate with somebody who thinks like me or who will act in harmony with me where it's mutually beneficial. And when you expand that to society at large, the incentives are that a lot of wealthy people at the top have a lot of these very nefarious and forcefully like backed up mechanisms to kind of keep themselves on the top. And they're incentivized to just get us to go along with it. And it's a very unnatural and distorted thing, because I mean, like hierarchies are a natural thing in the universe. They're everywhere you look, but they're shifting. They're dynamic. Like people will challenge them. They will change. They will collapse and rebuild themselves. And everything in my perspective, looking at the incentives of society at large, are like they're not set up that way. Like they're set up the exact opposite way, to not be challenged, to not collapse and rebuild themselves at all, to not change. And that is where Bitcoin comes in my mind, in like the big philosophical picture, is it's the thing that will just keep getting bigger and bigger and making all of the other incentives in the world conform to it.
So, yeah. I mean, here's an example of something that I think Bitcoin's going to do. I think it's going to, the average person that you own in your country, right? You're part of the political class, and you've got regular people that are paying taxes and aren't part of the political class, let's say. The thing that Bitcoin will do is it'll make that relationship less profitable for the political class, because they won't be able to print money, and that's the majority of their funding comes from that. And then the other thing that it will do is I believe, and this is a little bit more controversial, but I think that it's going to make taxation not cost effective. A lot of people that work with cash right now don't pay income taxes of any kind. They don't pay employee taxes, right? If you give the guy that comes to your house $100 bill for fixing a clogged pipe, none of that money is likely to go into social security taxes or any of the other grab bags that government has. And so I think an electronic cash is going to even be more tempting not to pay your quote fair share of extortion. And so I think that that's going to make that not cost effective. So I do think that has a lot of profound implications, and I think it's going to improve the world a lot. But I think those are the two major earth-shattering things that Bitcoin has already, proved that it's going to do.
Yeah,
I think
exactly, and that will force other incentive structures in the world to align themselves with Bitcoin instead of vice versa.
Well, I was gonna say, like, this is like one of the things where I think Bitcoin is just kind of like it's just kind of jumped out of there like a miracle, really, because it was something that we needed. Because you see, this system that we've been using in place for so long, like when you start just messing with people's idea of like, what is your balance in your checkbook, and these numbers control your life, and these numbers are really important, but they're not going to add up underneath, and I think it causes all sorts of confusion to where, it does create the wrong incentive structures, and it just, it keeps it sort of all locked up where, I don't know, if I see like what I see with Bitcoin doing whenever you talk about like, moving forward like that is also kind of just clearing up the whole information space, and like, it brings in the right incentive structures and kind of brings in the correct information. And we're kind of off in a rabbit hole here. So you want to round us off here, Shinobi?
I mean, if I don't know, nobody else has any input, I don't want to kill a conversation like a total fascist. I kind of did dive us into this rabbit hole.
No, it's a good conversation to have on Karl Marx's birthday. But I do have a human threat model. I know some of you guys have looked at my Bitcoin threat model that makes the case for a lot of this stuff. So if you go out to my GitHub, you'll be able to see that. And I think that it's a systematic attempt to kind of go through and talk about all these sort of things.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I guess if Jeannie doesn't have anything else to say, you want to take us into the whole Goldman shebang?
Yeah, let's talk about that. I mean, we were just talking about Bitcoin taking off in a positive direction, and bankers on that Parliament panel knowing what he's talking about. So we talked about just the past couple of months, Goldman acquired Circle, and then they in turn acquired Poloniex. So we know there's definitely been some backroom rumblings about Goldman doing OTC, but now they're talking about opening a Bitcoin trading desk. And one of the greatest things, just real quick before this whole thing, is like, there's not a mention really of blockchain or anything else. They say virtual currency in there, right? But like, that's kind of just a lot of the legislation we're seeing, like here in Colorado, they call it virtual currency. But I mean, like, it's all centric around Bitcoin was the article. So it looks like Goldman's building a Bitcoin trading desk. They're going to use their own money to create a variety or to use a variety of, hold on, sorry. Yeah, they're going to use their own money in a variety of contracts linked to the price of Bitcoin, mainly Bitcoin futures. And they're also going to create their own more flexible version of this future known as a non-deliverable forward, which, here in a second, I'll get into that. But it says that they're waiting for more clear regulations before buying Bitcoin directly, and also just, I guess, some of the secure storage and everything like that. It's just they want to get all that stuff shored up before they actually start holding Bitcoin. So they're waiting for more clear sights on that. And Rana Yarid, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. She's that person's holding up the they're heading it up there as far as getting this whole desk started there, and working with other Goldman executives. And he's talking about the way that things are going over there. He said that he wouldn't describe himself as a true believer who wakes up thinking Bitcoin will take over the world, similar to the way we think, I guess. And he says for almost every person involved, there has been personal skepticism brought to the table. And that skepticism comes because, just like a couple of years ago, really, like we were talking about last episode, it's like if you just brought up Bitcoin, it was mentioned about how it's just for drug activity on the internet and it's only used by criminals. where now that we've started to see that sort of banner break up and people are sort of getting skeptical about all these currencies, they start to give Bitcoin a second look, I guess. And they're really starting to see like, okay, there's something more to this. And maybe that's why we're seeing all these bankers really starting to understand this. Excuse me. So, yeah, like Justin Schmidt is the guy who's take point at the trading desk. He was a hedge fund guy over at 7-8 Capital, and then he left there to trade crypto full time. And yeah, I guess Goldman tapped him to head up this desk as far as Bitcoin trading and everything. But he's going to put him there around where the currency trading goes on, just because it's just a similar market activity. So he's there, and he said that he has an interest in trading Bitcoins and even physical Bitcoins, which I think we've got a story about later, is, he's just waiting for a more, like we're saying, clear information on regulations as far as secure storage and making sure all that stuff's up and into place before they actually start doing that. And, Mr. Schmidt, he said that, Goldman's sophistication was a big part of the reason, he was open to the job, because he had lots of other opportunities. I'm sure he was making a good amount of money trading, crypto if he got this gig with Goldman. And, that just kind of brings us into this next article talking about how, from NBC, we're going to see other banks follow suit because, we usually see Goldman taking the lead on this stuff. And so Spencer Bogart is a partner with Blockchain Capital. And he was saying, that most banks follow Goldman and the space is too big to ignore, with companies like Coinbase and Binance putting up crazy numbers and just the, a large amount of influx from clients saying that they want exposure to this. So, we're going to probably see some more banks come on to this idea of opening a Bitcoin trading desk. And just sort of show like this next tweet from Goldman sort of shows like how, they're really into this. Like they're invested here in Stockholm. They've just increased their presence there from, 30 staff to 100. They just bought, 2 floors of a working space there across, I guess in a major part of Stockholm. And it's all going to serve for R&D on securities technologies. And they got a relaxed dress code to attract techies. So I guess, if you're out there and you want a relaxed dress code and you want to work on Bitcoin, go out there to this place and put in an application. So, Pantor is developing high performance trading software since 2016, and they're going to be the basis for the lab. And Rolf Anderson, who heads up the R&D for electronic trading at Goldman, he says that the office is designed to encourage solutions to complex problems in global markets through research and design. Our engineering lab is a far step from what you'd imagine a trading floor to be like. And the majority of these new roles in fintech from Goldman will be setting up shop here in Stockholm for favorable regulations and the various areas of expertise the region brings to the industry as far as banking and engineers. So, I mean, like overall, I think this is just like a good story as far as like, I guess we were talking about last year, this Bitcoin ETFs and everything. And I think it's like this sort of stories and these sort of things that are going to happen before we see that actually take place. And it's, to me, I'm kind of, pretty excited to finally see, some guys that are pretty big names in the space, like start to take it seriously and come in. And, like you were saying, you don't know what to think about this banker saying legitimate stuff on there, standing up to Ripple. It's, I don't know. I like the way the article was talking about the skepticism that everybody brings to the space. And I just think that's something where maybe, these other coins and everything have really kind of just like shed the idea that like, look, there's different use cases and these things are doing different things. And then like people just bring a new look on it and bring the skepticism to where they say like they reanalyze it and they actually learn something about it, because it sounds like, they're only interested in Bitcoin because they know that when it comes to like these sort of, institutional players buying something, they don't want to deal with something that 50% of the supply is controlled by a group of individuals, or they're this one week and they're that next month, and this already happened as far as a bailout, and there's 2 of these. that's so much of a headache, and that's why I think it's this all of us coming under this banner of money and us just working together. Then it's gonna keep us moving forward, and we'll get these these big industry players in here buying and holding Bitcoin as soon as they can figure out a way to put it in a big multi-sig and secure it.
I mean, how long do you guys think it's going to be before that no shoes policy becomes we're giving you free pot, get high, and give us some good ideas? Like, come on. We need to
or microdosing in San Fran, right? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they're trying to attract the techie industry. I'd like to go up there and just check it out because like what's this? Yeah, you're gonna see people. I should probably just go to one of these buildings here in Boulder where there's like some tech company. I bet you they're doing something similar.
But I mean, it's it really is just like I am a lot more positive after seeing this Parliament hearing about the corporate environment around like air quote blockchain, because I mean at this point, like I want to say R3 is maybe like 4 years old now, like 3 or 4, like maybe 5 years old, and I mean it's like where's the working implementation? Like Ripple like got eviscerated through this whole thing and had like their entire core business idea kind of torn to pieces very skeptically. And I mean like, it's none of these things really they either haven't solved anything like Everledger. Well, it's like you still have to worry about data sanity. Like it's okay if it's not checked, you screw that up, your blockchain doesn't matter. Or to like Ripple with these fundamental flaws and things, or like R3, who's been fumbling around for years and not really produced anything substantial, or like the nonsense coming out of the Hyperledger project. And like, I'm really hoping we do see like this turn into a huge trend where a lot of people in the financial industry and in like other technical industries stop just buying this buzzword like it's fucking gold. I mean, like, like actually step back for a minute and assess the situation instead of just going, we have to get fucking blockchain before our competitors do or else. Because I mean, like that attitude just wastes so much money and so much time on dead end bullshit.
It is what the interesting thing is, like I was saying about the skepticism, is like without it though, would they really have that skepticism? Because I mean, like they probably would take that, just that initial, it's this and it's that and that's what it is and whatever. But with all of them out there, they question it and they make them think a little bit harder. But definitely, like, it's something where I don't think they're, once they start looking into it, they don't want to fiddle with anything unless they know it's something that's actually new and going to be, really revolutionary, something, like Bitcoin, Bitcoin. So, yeah, interesting story coming out of Goldman. I'm glad to, see some. Not really like it's good for me. I mean, I don't have any account with Goldman or something, but at least like they're taking it seriously. They're not saying like Jamie Dimon, it's a fraud, so it's good that way.
Yeah, it's more progress towards more adoption. So even though those guys are arguably very evil, them being pro Bitcoin or interested in the space and investing in it is going to be a good thing in the long run. I wouldn't want to be a shareholder in their business, but yeah, it's a lot better than the announcements that Bitcoin is a fraud. So it's like the tide seems to really be building. I'm still surprised we haven't seen anything more in 2018 around like countries doing anything major, but I still think 2018 is going to be a big year.
I'm surprised by that too. I think that might be 2019. I'm guessing.
I mean, Iran's like still piloting crap to follow in the footsteps of the petro, I guess, but I don't really see that like really taking off anywhere except places the US is fucking with. Because I mean, if we're not, then what's the real reason behind it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it is going to be fun when one of these central banks starts making investments into Bitcoin. That's going to be a fun moment.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Probably going to see a blow off top here shortly. Then maybe we'll start to see all the article flood out later saying, this is them. They're here.
I think Japan is already here. But I don't know. Nobody else has anything else to say on this one. We've been beating up on our favorite punching bags so much lately. I thought I'd go find us a new one.
Goldman Sachs.
Nope. Mycelium. So for a quick wrap up here in history terms, this is the wallet company that raised a shit ton of money from their users, provided nothing of value out of that, hasn't delivered on anything they promised, is super quiet and evasive when asked about this. After raising all this money to build things and to try to plug in revenue sources into the wallet, put advertisements as a revenue stream in the wallet and removed it within 24 hours because the Play Store was immediately flooded with bad reviews. Reddit lost its shit. People stopped using the wallet and apparently have just been ignoring their users and working on the thing that they were supposed to deliver a long time ago, which on its own is not a bad thing. They're breaking the wallet up into different modular pieces so that they can simply isolate the core functions of the wallet in its own app and then simply have like modular other apps you would download to integrate with each other to provide different functionality for things. Okay, so that on its own sounds like a good idea, doesn't it? You know, kind of iron everything out, isolate things, make bringing new features a lot more simple. It's just plugging in a new module. Until you get to their retarded logic when challenged, why do you not support SegWit yet still? One of the developers, I personally see SegWit most urgently for our hardware wallet support and otherwise see much more pressing improvements. What we're going to do is we're going to work on a Lightning Network module. See? And this Lightning Network module will have SegWit in it, but it will only use it for the Lightning Network module on Lightning. And if you want to use SegWit just on its own, like what's the big deal? Why do you care? Fees are low. Why do you care about cheaper fees? Like stop arguing with me. We're doing the modules, okay? Leave us alone. SegWit's only in the Lightning module. You don't need SegWit on the main chain alone right now. Like stop bugging us. We're doing the module thing. And like if you go through this is literally like I again forget where as I usually do, but the links in the show description. He literally like snappily is like, what do you care about SegWit? When this user keeps pressing him, like, why is this feature not in the wallet yet? And why is its first arrival only going to be used for Lightning channels and not usable for just regular on-chain activity? And I mean, it's like this company really, it seems like they want to shoot themselves in the dick. Like they want to fail. They want to piss off their user base. They want to have their priorities all out of whack. Because does anybody else have a reasonable other explanation for this fucking nonsense?
No, I mean, I like a few years ago, I was hearing how great Mycelium was as a wallet, but I was never inspired. Like I looked at it and I was like, no. And that's partly because, you know, I'm not a smartphone user, but if I was to use a wallet on a smartphone, it would not be Mycelium. Because it doesn't have the features I want. Like SegWit is just the start. Like I would want privacy features. Mycelium doesn't really have that. So it's missing all of the features that I would want if I was to use a smartphone. Like if I'm using a smartphone, I have to have privacy features. That's not even a question. So the fact that they don't have that, like I've never understood why Mycelium is one of these popular wallets, because as far as I could tell, it was not a very good UX. And yeah, the fact that they haven't added SegWit yet is really disappointing.
I think the developer's an old school Bitcoiner or something. Because yeah, I don't know. It was one of those things where I saw this Mycelium post and I just kind of laughed for a minute. It's like, oh yeah, Mycelium wallet. This thing was around a while back, but now what happened to it? Because they just sort of like gave up. I mean, like felt like the beginning of 2017 before UASF was even like proposed. It felt like this whole thing was in the clear, like it's gone. And until I guess the ICO, we like heard from them briefly on that, but then haven't heard anything from them again. But like you're saying, I mean, it just I mean, I don't know what exactly they're offering the community with this module, but I mean, there's definitely a lot better implementations and everything. I mean, like I used Mycelium, I think, for like a couple months, and I remember there was sort of like an issue with updates or something. And either which way, like I'm pretty much like on Samurai now. I mean, those guys, like they're providing awesome features and everything, and they're really active in the community. You see them talking in tweets and liking tweets and retweets, and I mean, they're just they're a lot more where when it comes to a wallet that I'm going to go to for my smartphone, I don't know. Mycelium is definitely just something where I don't know. They'd have to come in for a while now and just like actually start getting into the discussion in crypto, because I mean, you can't just come up and be like, "Hey, we're going to do this," and now everybody come back to us. I don't know. It's check out Samurai, people.
And I mean, I used to really like Mycelium. I mean, like it was like I thought it was a decent wallet. Like it wasn't the most streamlined like UX or UI I've seen, but it wasn't insane. Like there was nothing that ever jumped out at me that's like, oh, this is fucking stupid. But then like this ICO, like it is like, give us a bunch of money, we'll give you equity, we're gonna do all this stuff and plug in fiat on ramps and give people a cut, and then just whoosh, they seem to just forget that they issued these obligations and took these people's money. And then they put ads in the wallet, justifying it as a source of revenue. So after raising a shit ton of money from the community, they turn around and start putting ads in their wallet to make money. So, okay, you just raised a bunch of money to get work done to generate revenue. And after that, and after going totally silent on it, your response is, we'll put ads in the wallet and that will make us money. That doesn't add up. Like the entire way they've just withdrawn from the community. And I mean, like this is seriously just the most absolute retarded shit I've ever heard. We'll put SegWit in the wallet, but you can only use it to use Lightning Network. And we'll just get to the, just having SegWit later. I mean, it's complete full fucking retard. I mean,
I don't know.
I think it's really hard to find a business model that works in Bitcoin. A for-profit business model is always hard to find. But when you're talking about something that's as new and disruptive, it's like, where should I build my house during this earthquake? Like, yes, all of the existing buildings are getting reset, but until things settle down, it's really hard to know where you can solve problems profitably. I mean, I certainly, if you were to ask me, it's not like I have 5 ideas where I could say, build this and you'll make money. It's a really hard space. So I get that. And I guess I kind of want to give them a little credit, because the one really obvious business model in this space is just selling crap coins, right? And they did the ICO. That's probably shady, but were they part of SegWit 2X? Were they part of that push to try to destroy Bitcoin?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, so I would kind of almost put them in the good guys category if they haven't done that. Like, pretty much, unless you've strapped dynamite to your chest like Coinbase and just tried to destroy the free world, you're not too bad, even if you suck.
Dude, I mean, they're blatant scammers. Like, they raised a shit ton of money from the community at large and then delivered nothing, and are just being completely incompetent in their development.
It's one of those other things where it's a problem, man. It's like, if you have an idea and you raise the money, then all of a sudden you raise so much money, you don't have to work again in the rest of your life. So I don't know. It's like JW's saying, the earth is quaking and you're trying to, build a foundation. It's like, let's let this thing settle for a minute, and then we can start to see where we could build.
Yeah, and I mean, there are good wallets out there. Like Samurai is pretty awesome, and Eclair is awesome. So, but I don't know how, we'll see if these guys can find a way to really make a lot of money doing it. Now, hopefully they can make at least enough money to self-fund and break even, or maybe these guys are the only real business model that seems to make sense is to invest a bunch in Bitcoin and then build apps to make Bitcoin better. But outside of that, it's pretty tough. But yeah, no, I'm not saying they're not bad guys. They probably are scammers. They probably did raise that money and not work very hard for it. I remember some story about as soon as they raised the money, somebody quit because they were spending it all at the beach or something. Like that's pretty shady stuff. But I just still want to put them in a different category if they haven't actually tried to destroy Bitcoin. They're like, oh, you're just a normal thief. Like you just steal from investors. Yeah, you're in the top 5%, baby.
That's a different class.
It's like a wallet application is how a user interacts with the network. It's how they're going to judge the network. That's their experience and exposure to it. And when you have completely incompetent dipshits creating and heavily pushing things and actually being very popular among the choices out there, I think that's really important to call out, because dumbasses running around and just building a complete shit design and experience is going to turn people off from Bitcoin.
Yeah. It's, I guess, it's, I don't know, like we were saying,
Eclair
it's just
awesome
weird to hear them pop back up. Yeah, Eclair, right? Like, I guess, they pop back up because, like you're saying, Lightning, they got to, hey, Lightning's around. This is, they're, hey, at least they know their tech. They're jumping up for Lightning.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's like, they did a pretty good job displaying Lightning and on-chain distinctly without being too overloading, but I'm still interested to see that next jump forward and just completely abstract it away into a Bitcoin balance. And unlike morons like Paul Pui, yes, there are plenty of ways to do that if you're not an idiot and actually try to learn how Lightning works and what's possible with it.
Pew pew.
Yeah, shout out to that article, man.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of Lightning, though, I'm gonna cram two things together for time's sake. There we go. So one interesting thing coming from a completely unexpected place is Vertcoin. Somebody from the Vertcoin community is actually working on a plug and play Lightning node that would run on top of a pruned full node for Bitcoin, Litecoin, or Vertcoin out of the box, and actually try to build an interface for this so that you can leave it plugged in at home and just remotely connect to it with your smartphone so that you can actually use it mobilely. And like, I was expecting like either like Lightning Labs or like Blockstream to try to build something like this and market it first. But I'm really interested to see how this plays out, because you can really deal with a lot of the SPV issues with watchtowers and the neutrino client side filtering so that you can actually periodically like check up on blocks without completely destroying your privacy. And like, I kind of want to see both of those things out there in the wild, like deployed, and see how that works. Like having everything locally on your phone, or like using your phone as a mechanism to connect to something that you're running at home. Because I'm like, that really is, all right, this is just going to be such a transparent, bad segue, but different use cases for both of those models. Like keeping everything on your phone, if you're not trying to route things, is obviously the more simple user experience in that case. But for somebody who maybe wants to be able to use it both for consumer purposes and actually have it online and being able to route things, you can do things like connect to Vaultoro, which has just become the first exchange to actually implement a Lightning beta. And they're one of the only places, or the only forget exactly, where you can trade physical gold certificates and actually have the physical gold delivered for cryptocurrencies. And so like, I want to see how these two differentiated Lightning models work out, because with like something at home you can connect to, you can do things like connect to exchanges or connect to businesses and be passively routing payments to them and getting that fee for that, and not having to kind of shatter your funds where you have like some things locked up on this stuff at home just for routing, and then you have like the wallet on your phone, which is isolated stuff for spending. Like you could actually just remotely control the thing at home, and so only have that one pool of funds, both for like earning passive income and for actual commercial use. And all right, I've combined two things. I got two stories out of the way, guys. All right, time to talk now.
I mean, like
my time saving.
I don't know. I think it's going to be great. We're just going to keep seeing Lightning Network stories pop up because, like, yeah, this is all just the beginning, really. Like, these are just the first real guys putting stuff together to try and implement something with Lightning. I think we're gonna be seeing a lot more stories like this and varied and different. It's going to be an awesome year.
Yeah, totally. I love to see that Vaultoro did that. That's great. Congratulations to those guys for being early. I think they're the first exchange, right? I mean, I know that they're not really they're not like a fiat to crypto exchange, but as a gold to crypto exchange, are they? I think they do take fiat too. Now that I think about it, but either way, it's a cool company, and I'm really glad that they enabled that. And the narrative that the Bitcoin can't scale is just, it's really threadbare at this point, right? Like the scammers that are pushing Litecoin and other things are going to have a really hard time selling that story the more the adoption of Lightning happens. It's harder and harder for guys like Paul to say, oh, nobody's ever going to use it. The UX, unanswered questions, major design flaws, watchtowers haven't been worked through, blah, 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 blah. It's getting more and more difficult to say that when you can go out and you can buy some gold with Lightning. So it's awesome.
An historical note is Vaultoro is one of the few businesses in the space that actually called bullshit on the New York agreement and was actually supporting BIP 148. So this is a company that is run by people who are here for the right reasons.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that is the context of all this stuff, right? We're excited about Lightning, but we're also excited about it because we've, this big battle has been playing out over years, I guess, but certainly it's been the big battle since I've been involved of, are we going to introduce a huge security vulnerability and just make the blocks dangerously large, or is there going to be layer 2 solutions? And we're still, it's still playing out. I can't freaking believe that they're able to pump Bcash and keep it around 10 or 15% or whatever it's at. But that's got to get, like, every time there's one of these stories that come out, it's got to be a little bit more expensive to keep that price inflated. So it's just a matter of time. But yeah, that's the context that all this stuff needs to be looked at in.
Yep. See, I was just thinking, lost it. Sorry.
Can't catch them all. But yeah, I don't know. There's nothing else to say on that. Kind of getting up on the 2 hours, so I'm gonna slide along to the next one.
We'll be talking a lot about Lightning this year, man. I know it.
You better believe it. But sadly, though, I guess not really. The Bitcoin.com lawsuit went kerplunk. And, there's really kind of 2, maybe 3 things that might have had something to do with it. Although the last for me is just hearsay. So take it for what that's worth. But like they were kind of having trouble as far as actual donations, of which I think the next thing might be a factor. And so Trig is pretty much going to be refunding all the public donations they've received. But also, obviously, Rick covered, I think, last episode, they pretty much reskinned the entire site. They removed the BTC ticker from the web page that was sending people to buy Bitcoin Cash. They rebranded everything to explicitly say Bitcoin Cash instead of Bitcoin everywhere. And the last thing, again, like this is just hearsay for me, but I've heard rumors of them receiving threats shortly after the lawsuit was announced. And so if there is merit to that, I kind of see this as like threats rolled in, changes were issued, and then kind of the willingness to cough up money with the very limited window now people could have actually, you know, had material losses and damages, like the potential threats of you know, repercussions, or it's not the right word, retaliation for the lawsuit. And it's just like at the end of the day, it pretty much accomplished what the intent was. Like, there is no longer the Bitcoin ticker BTC on a page sending people to buy an altcoin. Like, it says explicitly Bitcoin Cash everywhere. And so, I mean, I'm sure people are going to fucking scream and scream for a long time to come. The core trolls fucking failed. And just deride anybody for going to a fucking court for anything because you're not a real anarchist. But at the end of the day, like, what we wanted to get done, anybody who participated in this or supported this, it's done. Like, there is no longer the incorrect ticker symbol sending people to fraudulently buy something else. There is no longer as much blatant misrepresentation of bullshit. And so personally, I'm going to count that as a win.
Yeah, like honestly, like you know, that's where whenever we saw the BTC ticker change to BCH, like, you know, correct labeling of the tickers there, you know, we said it was a small victory for the lawsuit, and really, like you're saying, like that was kind of like the thing that sort of, you know, pushed it over the ledge as far as going from FUD to fraud. And I know you're saying, like, you know, it's hearsay and everything, but when you just think about the amount of money involved over there, like, and just in all this really, and you know, it's not that much speculation to think that there's definitely some backroom talkings going on. I mean, you know, when I first brought this up, I talked about how, like, you know, there was a couple of whales that were donating, and there was for years of litigation, and then all of a sudden now it's like, well, we've only got less than a Bitcoin, and you know, we can sustain this thing, and you know, it's like you're saying, the goal was achieved. Like, and I don't know. I think this is just to be expected with this sort of thing. It's like, will these sort of things ever get to an actual courtroom? I don't know. It's like you're talking about enough money and power to where you could end up like Seth Rich or something. I mean, there's probably a reason Money Triggs is an anonymous person. I mean, like that wanted to take this up. And so, like, I don't know. To me, it's just like the way that the whole thing has panned out over the past week or so that it's been going around. It just feels like there's definitely a lot of, you know, a lot more going on in the background that we're not seeing, which is understandable for this. So, I mean, like you're saying, it shaked out the way it did and kind of ended on a high note there, as long as, you know, they're not exactly going full fraud over there.
Alrighty then. I guess next thing, not really too big of a news story, but there is this stock analyst who calls himself Citron Research. Andrew Left is his proper name. And he pretty much shorted Square and made a tweet, Wall Street drunk on Bitcoin nonsense. Square Cash to BTC trading has been insignificant, even with hyper growth, still 40% too rich. And Square's stocks dived a little bit. And so, like, I kind of just thought this would be worth pointing out because it's really an interesting dynamic I hadn't really considered until I saw this story. Is if we see a lot of upstart or kind of like more agile small companies like start moving rapidly into the Bitcoin space and trying to sell products or services or build infrastructure, like, there's going to be reactions like this where you have players in the legacy system effectively trying to attack them in the market. I mean, like, this is like just a huge, I mean, like, you know, the markets are just like 4D chess. Like, people say things publicly, people see things publicly, people say things privately or see things privately. And this information moving around causes larger numbers of people to do things. And I mean, ultimately, like, that is ripe for manipulation, as you can see in the crypto space, the legacy space, like everywhere. Like, if you are a loud enough voice and you put something out there that can have a tangible effect on the markets. And that's a very viable way for larger legacy players to kind of fuck with people who try to dip their toes into the Bitcoin space. Like, okay, we'll put out really negative press and fucking short your ass, and we'll make money fucking you up a little bit. And it's kind of got me wondering just like how really extreme that could get, and whether that could actually wind up kind of disincentivizing people to really get involved in the Bitcoin space.
I mean, I suppose, could, like, I don't know, like I almost wanted to lead this into the Goldman story, because it just like kind of like, who is this guy saying a tweet about like this company and their, Bitcoin nonsense is stupid. And then you got Goldman Sachs talking about opening a Bitcoin trading desk and, employing people in Stockholm. And, you've got people, from CNBC and, hedge funds saying like other banks are going to follow. And I don't know, like this was something where, yeah, it's like a problem with markets. There's a lot of movements and stuff going on. And I guess, like JW says, there's a lot of dumb money out there. And if somebody, I don't know who this guy is, but I guess there's some people who think he's smart enough that he knows what he's talking about when he says Bitcoin nonsense, and people freak out. When in reality, what they're at now, I mean, like, what were people saying when Overstock said they were going to start accepting Bitcoin? And then what did they say last year when their stock price went through the roof with the price rise? So, yeah, let them be erratic.
I know, but it's like, that's still, like, that can have tangible effects. I mean, like, this Andrew Left guy, like, he literally, that's what he does. Like, he
fucks with markets,
researches things, he calls out things he thinks are overvalued, and he shorts them. And like, that's kind of there is that niche in markets where, like, that's how a lot of people make money. They will either find legitimate problems or just FUD them, and then they'll short whatever their like focus of interest is. And like, that's like, how big of a scale could that really get to as kind of an immune response to Bitcoin growing and growing and kind of weaving its tendrils more and more into the existing financial world?
My guess is that what's going on here is, he could be right in the sense that maybe there was such a big pop, and I haven't looked into how much it went up after they started engaging in Bitcoin stuff and enabling Bitcoin, however they did. But it's possible that it was such a big percentage jump that he's looking at it and saying, "Oh, that's too much," right? And if he's not a big fan of Bitcoin, that could factor in, but it's possible, right? It's like if when it popped to 19,000 in December, you had said, "Oh, it's gonna correct and it's gonna come back down," you would have been right. If it was just, there was a ton of exuberance and expectations about what's going to happen in the next couple months for the wrong reasons, right? Like, it should be at freaking 100,000 with what's going on with Lightning, but nobody really understands it. And so, maybe in that sense, you could make the argument that at 20,000 Bitcoin's overvalued because nobody understands the importance of Lightning, and they're all excited about, stuff that can't happen until we get Lightning. I don't know. But so maybe this stock is, maybe there's something similar going on there. I'm not worried about like people getting too crazy and trying to short Bitcoin. There's a lot of dumb money in the system, but it gets worked out eventually, and it gets worked out pretty quickly. And we have a lot of historical examples of, people trying to corner the market or trying to do something to manipulate the market, And I don't think that it's gotten easier with the internet to kind of control the flow of information and keep people from realizing what's valuable and what's not. So I would argue it'd be a very risky move for anybody to try to do that. But so yeah, I'm not worried about it in the long run, and I'm not even sure that this guy is wrong with his assessment of Square in the short run.
Yeah, I mean, like that price could have been. I mean, like you're saying, I didn't look at Square's price either before this, but it's just like I don't know. I just think it's kind of stupid to say Bitcoin nonsense. I mean, I guess there is a lot of Bitcoin nonsense out there if you start to encapsulate everything as far as like blockchains and all this other stupid stuff that's going on. I mean, yeah, I guess you could say that. I guess the wording of it kind of just like where it's like, wait a minute, this guy's saying anything to do with Bitcoin is nonsense. But I guess maybe I'm just looking at it too definitive in that wording, I guess.
Yeah, I have a hard time trying to figure out what should happen with any prices in the short term. Like Bitcoin should be worth at least $5 million eventually when it's
volatility.
But between now and then, there's just so much. There's so many people that don't understand it, and there's so much learning that has to happen on a global scale between here and there. And that learning happens in fits and starts, right? And it happens in like overestimating how great it's going to be next week, and then realizing, oh my gosh, I really don't want to buy pet food online, right? It's like all these very sort of ugly processes that we go through when we adopt new technology. So I wouldn't want to try to predict what's going to happen, as you know, people like Warren Buffett, who don't even send an email, are making decisions with billions of dollars about how he interprets Bitcoin. Like God only knows, right?
Right about that.
All right, so we ready to move on to the next second to last story?
Yeah, man, I want to get my hands on one of these.
Whoa! I just did a recursive screen share on accident. All right, so Tangum, a Swedish / Singapore startup company, has or is about to release a actual physical banknote. And what this really is a kind of a smart card that generates and manages a private key similar to the way an open dime does, like just abstractly speaking, not how it's actually implemented. And it costs about $2 to manufacture right now. So for a $20 Bitcoin note, that's 10% of its value. And I'm imagining that this can kind of come down a lot more the more you scale up the production of this. But really what I want to say first is really the make or break with this is the chip. Like this is using a new Samsung chip for the actual private key management generation. And I'm not really, I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence because this is a new chip. Like this hasn't really been out there and tested. And I mean, as far as hardware, you can't really say it's 100% impossible to tamper with. And they do make some pretty strong claims to that regard. But it's not impossible to say that they have something, you know, very solid, very secure. And if that caveat is filled, like this is huge. Because like right now, I mean, like as much as I love open dimes, like these cost like a little more than $10 per unit. Like with a production cost of $2 of like cranking that down lower, you can really scale this out and make this cheaper for smaller and smaller denominations. And really the only kind of issue with that regarding the Bitcoin network itself is how big that fragments the UTXO set. So like eventually things like this might make more sense to kind of stuff into a side chain or have some kind of way to have a single address commit to a number of different cards or something in a provable way. But like those issues aside, like this, like you get the cost down for the physical thing that you can actually move around and bam, like that is a huge pressure relief valve for the demand of actual block space in the event Bitcoin does just literally explode and start seeing actual use for commerce on a very large scale, like all around the globe. And the interesting thing about these is, unlike the Open Dime, because this is kind of based on smart card technology, you don't have to, like, there is no way to extract the key, assuming the hardware is actually functioning properly. Like, unlike the Open Dime, you break the seal, like you can get the key off. It's no longer safe to actually pass around. And this can actually sign transactions directly from the card. So you can load amounts on, take amounts off, and it's a lot more flexible in its reusability there, because you're not committed to only adding amounts to it before you eventually like break the seal, and then kind of that device is useless in the case of the Open Dime. And that last part, being able to sign stuff, has me really thinking, like, take this beyond just like a physical banknote. Like, if this can actually sign transactions, what are the potential here with something like Lightning Network? Like, could you actually have a functional Lightning wallet on one of these cards that would, like, you just tap the terminal, it commits the transaction, checks it, signs it, takes the commitment state, like, and in the case of like L2 actually being rolled out, if that soft fork for the new SIG hash flag would actually be successful, then you just have the one state to worry about, and you do it, you sign your transaction, you spit your last state out to a bunch of watchtowers out there, and then you just don't have to worry about it. And in the design where you can't actually get the key off of the device, if that hardware security holds up, not only could you do something like have a Lightning wallet you just tap to pay with, but I could literally just hand you a card with a pre-existing channel, and you're now on Bitcoin on the Lightning Network. And so, like, I mean, again, I really kind of want to wait and see how this device actually holds up to people poking at the hardware and trying to break it. But if this actually does kind of meet how secure they're advertising it is, like, this is fucking awesome for a shit ton of different reasons.
Yeah, one of which being they just like straight up look awesome. I want one, man. I just, like we've been saying, you know, oh, people, they want one Bitcoin. I don't know, you getting Bitcoin long enough, just having a card that says there's 0.01 or 0.05 on there, like yeah, I like it. I like that, and like you're saying, you know, I mean, we did that story where there's the NFC Lightning, and yeah, I think you know, one day soon enough we'll have that sort of thing all put together to where adoption will be a lot easier.
But just I think it's possible it'll get counterfeit, right? I mean, there are security issues with it. I wouldn't probably go buy $10,000 worth from the corner store, but but on the other hand, it's not a terrible idea if it's only, you know, what is 0.01 right now, $100? Is that right? Yeah. If it's $100 and it's hard enough to hack them and it's easy enough to verify them, I mean, maybe $10 is the limit. Maybe 1,000 is too much. Maybe 100 is okay. I don't know. But there is a point there that they can play around with, where hopefully, because I like the idea, they can find a good balance where it's too expensive to be worth the trouble of counterfeiting them, and it's too easy to verify that they're authentic. That'd be awesome. That would be really, really nice for usability. I really like what the Azteco guys are doing with the cards that you can just pick up in the store, you know, like a gift card, like a phone recharge card, but for Bitcoin. I think that's probably a better security model, because you immediately verify it by putting it into your own wallet, right? And it's on the blockchain and it's verified. But this is cool too, and I'm glad to see that there's some legitimate experimentation going on and some more companies that are in the space, and it's, you know, it's definitely not a scam. So awesome. Hopefully it works. If it doesn't, hopefully they'll pivot to something that does.
And I mean, like this kind of works similar to the open dime. Is like you're actually getting like some degree of attestation from like the hardware cryptographically secured. And I mean, like ultimately with like kind of like things like Azteco, I mean, like these don't have to be preloaded. Like the way you can actually still sign things. Like you can just sell empty cards and load them yourself, or like use this. Like let's say Azteco could literally provide you with cards like this, and then you check them, verify them, and then like redeem your code and have coins sent there. And like really the thing I'm most like psyched to see how this holds up to like security people poking at it is the potential of literally being able to hand you an active lightning channel. Like not just like coins on chain sitting in a key that's on that device, but an actual active channel. Like you know what I mean? Like that channel itself.
Yeah, it's already ready to go. Yeah, that is very cool. I gotta say though, it's not that hard to open up a lightning channel. I mean, I installed the Eclair wallet, screwed around with it. There's a lightning tab. I even gave it to a 13-year-old, right? Like didn't have the Eclair wallet even installed, just handed him a phone. It's like, it's not hard. It's really easy.
No, but I'm thinking more in terms of like really long-term efficiency with block space. You know what I mean? This is just this would be another like tool in the toolkit to be more efficient in how you're using it. Like, yeah, I could just like take coins or receive coins and open a channel. But if I can also just get one of these devices or something like it that has an active channel where I can see with a very high degree of certainty, like this is the only copy of the key to it, like more options. Like let's bring on as many as we can.
Totally. Yeah. One of the other things I was just thinking about is if somebody handed me one of those, would I trust it more than $100 bill? And I probably would, especially if if it would require any sort of work to fake it cryptographically. There's a lot of fake US $100 bills being printed in I don't know where, but they say it's a lot of it's coming out of Panama. But you don't have to accept a whole lot of $100 bills in the United States before you come across a fake anymore. Like it's a real problem. And so if you like, as a security person, I'm always thinking of all the worst case scenario stuff, but you do sort of have to put on the business person hat and take a step back and say, well, how does this compare to the status quo? Like right now, the way that you could buy Bitcoin, you could do on-chain transactions, you can do all that sort of stuff. But if I just want to hand somebody something real quick and walk away, and it's $100 and they're willing to take it, that's pretty cool. And it's certainly more secure than a piece of linen with some ink on it. And maybe a strip of metal that I can't do anything to test anyway. So it's pretty cool. I'm definitely a fan. I hope it works.
Might start seeing less of those now that North Korea and South Korea are getting along.
Right.
Oh man, looks like we lost Shinobi right here at the end. But well, shoot, like I guess I'll go ahead and take us into this last story, just because I'm sure Shinobi will be here in just a minute.
Why is
There he
Hangouts
is.
just resetting?
There he is.
Like it's not even like dying or freezing or anything. It just reset.
Bugs.
But did you or Acnix have anything to say on the card you need?
Yeah, I would definitely use that stuff if it ever comes to Europe. Where are they actually based?
The company is actually a Swiss
Singapore.
company, but they operate out of
Oh
Singapore.
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh damn it. Wait. Swiss company in Singapore.
Yeah,
I see what they did there.
you might have to get to your
Oh.
corporate headquarters there.
Shinobi.
Oh, they're just taking them out, man.
I thought it was Japan. Oh wow, I was way off.
No, man, it's Singapore. Singapore is where all that new, a lot of the new tech is getting, I guess, dished out and tested. Lots of
think
liquidity
that's-
there. Oh my
I heard
goodness.
that's where Vitalik ran off to recently.
Yeah, I think this is a good step forward here. This piece, it could really be the way for replacement paper bills with chips in them and stuff. We can have Bitcoin in verifiable dollar reserve style status, you know.
It'll definitely, like Shinobi's saying, you know, it'll help like move, just like, you know, just like give a variance of ways to, you know, move transactions without really you know, affecting the chain. So I think it's gonna be awesome. It'll be great to see. Just more Bitcoin tech just all being developed. I mean, like, yeah, I'd like to get my hands on it and start fiddling with it.
All right. If Hangouts doesn't decide to commit suicide on me yet again, we were gonna end with the Oh My's Badger dance, but I guess we'll end with this stupidity instead. If you thought that Memo Cash, the retarded idea of putting Twitter on the Bitcoin Cash blockchain, was bad enough, no. We need Block Press. Another thing incompatible with Memo Cash that does the exact same thing. We need to have two competing Twitters on the Bitcoin Cash blockchain, guys. Otherwise, it's not decentralized. There's nothing competing. We have to have multiple competing instances of these retardedly inefficient things that just stuff arbitrarily stupid data into our blockchain. Come on, guys. We need to get the volume up. We need to make it look like people are using this. Somebody make a third one.
Yeah. And we need to increase the number of characters until it's not a microblogging platform anymore.
Right. Oh yeah, this is I think what you just asked, YB Cash Moon, maybe this is it. They're like, oh yeah, people are using it. Look. And it's not fake volume or nothing.
So somebody reached out to me about a project where they want to, they basically want to build a web app that makes it really easy to stuff arbitrary data into the Bcash blockchain, because the block limit is huge. The transaction fees are super low. So if you throw a bunch of pictures of cats or something in there, then every Bitcoin node is going to have to maintain that picture of a cat for all of eternity, right? And if you do that 10,000 times, it's probably not going to work out real well for those guys, right? It's maybe not the best idea to remove, security critical parameters on something like a blockchain, but
if CryptoKitties takes down Bitcoin Cash too, that's got to be like an official armament in the arsenal of crypto.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say about this, though. It's funny because they're like beating the hackers to it, right? Like there's some guys out there that want to break Bitcoin Cash, and
oh my god,
the Bitcoin Cash guys are like, no, we're going to break it because we're going to put freaking Twitter on there, and I'm sure they're probably going to try to limit it to characters or whatever, but then you just fork it and you allow people to upload DVDs, right? Let's friggin' watch Top Gun on the Bitcoin Cash blockchain.
Guys, crypto bitches, we're doing a rare Pepe variation with all the whiny bitches from the Bcash space displayed in their various historical incidences of complete incompetence in hilarious cartoony art.
That's a good idea. And you know what? We should do like a really super high def image of each, like, I don't know, 11,000 by 12,000, image. And then, I don't know, animated or something. So it's like 2 gigs, and then we'll just stuff it into the Bitcoin Cash blockchain.
But we're only going to trade it against Bitcoin with atomic swaps. We're just going to use Bcash just for the block space for the pictures and
just for the storage, because we want it to be secure. We want to make sure nobody can steal our rare Pepes.
Wait a second. There are women in Bcash, because the only women in Bcash I've seen have no clothes on and have BCH tattooed very badly across their chest. Like, I have not seen any women actually.
I've seen one crazy Australian lady, but she blocked me the minute.
Does she actually exist?
I think so. Some Australians I know have vouched for her existence.
Was she like the Australian version of Francis Coppola?
Kind of, except stupider.
Yeah, I've seen just a couple where it's like you're saying. I don't know. really exactly who they are, but I mean, like, I think one was at actually like a Bitcoin Cash. I don't know. It's one of these things where it's like you saw it tweeted about. Haven't really seen anything else from her. It was like I think she was like excited because somebody sold her something in Bitcoin Cash. But it's like I don't know. It's probably one of these like like we're saying, kind of like a. It's not like it wasn't really a sock puppet account because there was a person there taking a picture and everything. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was like kind of just paid promotion type deal. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just thinking like high definition images of this, the people involved. That's something, there's definitely blow up the chain, but I'm just thinking like, it is a real, cats and kittens, that stuff tears the internet up. And I mean, like maybe there's like something to just creating like a kitty platform to store in the blockchain. And that's like a legitimate way to just take down any blockchain.
The cat attack.
That's it. It's
the kitty attack.
The Hellcats are coming in
right now. Let the internet know that this is the moment that I have just incepted my Mona Lisa of Roger Ver memes. I'm gonna make it as soon as we get off the air today.
All right,
I refuse to look at it until it's stored in the Bitcoin Cash blockchain. And it's got to be super high def.
Okay. And I guess time for final thoughts. And since Janine's been getting the head start on having me load them up, shoot one. Janine, your thoughts?
Sorry. I was getting more thoughts. So just a reminder, Twitter found a bug in the last week where they were storing passwords in an internal log that were unencrypted because apparently the bug was that the passwords were being pushed to this internal log prior to going through the hashing algorithm that they usually store passwords in. So they fixed that now, but you should probably change your password in Twitter just to be safe. If you don't remember your password, if you're one of those people that just logs into things, like apparently a lot of people who use Twitter on their phone don't really log in because they just leave themselves logged in and they're not used to entering a password very often. So if you forgot it, your Twitter account is still attached to presumably an email address, so you can just send a reset email and then reset it that way. Or you can just go to the password section of the Twitter settings. It's not too difficult to find, so do that.
Thought 2 incoming.
Thought 2. Charlie Shrem said that he thinks that this month will be the last time that we'll see Bitcoin under $10,000, and Peter Todd would just like you all to know that that is not true, because one day the sun will explode and we will all die. And this tweet was funny for a number of reasons, because below it, people basically got into discussions about what is more likely to basically kill us all.
That's nerds on the internet for you.
So they weren't even arguing about the price. They were just arguing about what's more likely to destroy Earth. Great job, guys.
And 3.
Yeah, so I think we mentioned, I don't know if it was one of the stories, but I heard that a central banker in Switzerland said that Bitcoin was a better money than fiat, which is pretty amazing to have a central banker say that. And apparently, I don't know who did it. I only saw 2 tweets about this, but there was a series of Bitcoin related pictures being projected onto the Switzerland National Bank, which, yeah, familiar thing for me. But yeah, it was pretty funny that, they were projecting Bitcoin onto the Swiss National Bank.
The trolls will inherit the earth.
That is a lovely shot.
Good job, guys.
That's beautiful. That needs to be framed and on my wall.
All right, JW, your thought is loaded.
Hey, so we've got the first part, like basically like the first world of MathBot done, where you have basic programming. So the next world is all going to be about like conditionals and recursion and that sort of stuff. But if you haven't played it yet, the first 13 levels are up, so play it and let me know what you think. And I would love to connect with Ron Paul because he's got this Ron Paul homeschool curriculum. And it's actually pretty good. It's not bad at all. His history stuff is good. And, but he doesn't have anything up there on programming yet. So I would love to get MathBot up there and get exposed to some kids through that. So if you know anybody, DM me on Twitter, make an introduction, be greatly appreciated. Yeah, thanks.
All right. And then next up is Mr. Rick. And after that, we'll probably have another barrage from Janine.
Yeah, I just actually caught this right like before we went on. Like I missed this a couple of days ago. Samurai put this blog post out saying that they had introduced full BEC 32 support, which SegWit addresses and just increased efficiency and ricochet and all these privacy features we were talking about as far as just like when we were talking earlier about as far as Mycelium and their what they're doing with the community and everything. I just thought it'd be I didn't really have a final thought prepared. So I figured I'd just go grab this real quick and sort of show like, this is participation in the community. This is development. They're constantly moving forward and they're, letting us know what they're doing and everything. That's why I really like the Samurai wallet and those guys working over there. So good job guys over there. And if you don't have Samurai, take a look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I don't know. We should probably dig a little bit deeper into this next time because
I was actually thinking like maybe we should save this for next show. But yeah, maybe we'll dig into it.
Yeah, we'll go into it more. So this fell to the wayside when I was catching up on that Parliament hearing and a bunch of other white papers I have stacked up. But incoming, Janine thought loading. Janine thought loaded.
Yeah. So I just want to make this clear because apparently it was a point of confusion. That is not me. That is just my profile picture. Do not be surprised. My rule about having no pictures is very strict and consistent.
Don't fall for that. That's misinformation. That is right. Her. But
that's her
she
senior
doesn't want
picture.
you to know that that's her, so she's saying that it's not her.
Well, if you look at that tweet from Archelect, which was from... Wait, go back. Oops. No, we just ruined my intro. If you look at that tweet from Archelect, that was from like 2016. And he gives sources for it. Oh no, that was before they did sourcing.
What? That's
Listen, the lengths that you will go to obfuscate what is obviously your photo is ridiculous.
Yeah, I
have none of it.
I am Archelect. Yeah, I'm an AI.
I knew it. Know how you know all the things and find the stuffs.
Okay, and the last tweet. This is just kind of a joke. If you've been on Twitter in the last week or so, you'll probably understand what it's about. But I just thought it was really funny. My culture is not your goddamn prom dress.
No.
So if anyone didn't hear about it, there was a girl, I don't remember her name, but she basically went to her high school prom in a traditional Chinese dress that I think the context behind it is that it was designed for, well, the purpose originally was for working women, but then working women started or basically a dress that women would wear around the house when they were doing housework. And then they started wearing it out of the house during women's liberation in China. I think that was the story. But anyway, this girl basically wore it to her high school prom, and she got completely lambasted on Twitter because of cultural appropriation or something. And it was funny because I read this article that basically they interviewed a bunch of people who actually are Chinese, live in China, and they were like, no, that's great. We have no problem with this. Like, you guys are all freaking out. We don't know why. So yeah, this tweet is like it's a
But what they had to do is they had to interview the ugly women in China and ask them how they felt about it. And then they would have been as upset as the people in the United States that were upset about it.
Bitcoin.
No, I think as far as I could tell, most of the people that were offended were like second generation Chinese immigrants, or they were of Chinese descent, but like most of the people I saw were just Americans.
I'm just saying no chicks. I'm just saying no chicks above a 6 were complaining. I guarantee it.
No, you know, I think the first person to complain was actually a guy. Like who?
That's the so this tweet with the Bitcoin dress is actually making fun of his tweet, because he said my culture is not your prom dress, and it turns out it was some dude who had a history of being anti-Semitic and stuff, which is really awkward. He made this whole tweet where he's like, that was my past, I'm so sorry, blah blah blah, and it's like, dude, it's just
you gotta look at Jordan Peterson stuff on Sneaker Mails. It explains so much of this.
And there's something going on, man. I mean, like we were saying earlier, like how there's like thought prisons. That's one of them. That's one of them.
Better meme, the Lambo shield. It's just that's Bitcoin culture.
Oh Lord.
I'm sorry, but I most sports cars, they just I think it's just because I don't like driving cars in general, but if I would drive a car, it would be out in the middle of nowhere, and I would want my car to be something I could drive out in the middle of nowhere. So sports cars just look really weird to me. They look like non-functional, like it looks like it would break if you took it on any kind of road that wasn't completely flat and clean.
Oh yeah, I would feel like a fish out of water in a sports car. I'm just thinking we need like that, you know, like that backpack that had the Genesis block on it. We've seen the baby shirt. We need a dress that has the Genesis block on it. Maybe there's like that's the culture Bitcoin dress. If we're talking about what is culture Bitcoin dress,
it's the Lambo, it's the Lambo dress.
I really hope
that's
that someday. Yeah, I really hope that someday the Lambo is not a symbol of prosperity in Bitcoin, because I think we can aim better than that. I mean, at least choose something like
it's the
more
current
cyberpunk,
meme.
like a flying car. At least go with a flying car, not a Lamborghini.
It's got to be wanton wealth destruction. That's how you attract the ladies. You show that you could just piss away hundreds of thousands of dollars and you don't even care, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, that guy's amazing." He's good. He's good breeding stock if he can throw money around like that.
That's that thought prison.
The Lambo is here. It is a cemented cultural icon. It is not going away. Sorry to break that news to you, Gene.
They are ridiculous looking, though.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, are there any final thoughts before we call it a day?
If it's beautiful weather, get out in it some.
Bike and weather. JW,
right.
Janine?
Save for a Ferrari.
Play my game and tell me if you don't like it and why. That would be the most valuable feedback.
Alrighty. Well, I guess I'm gonna shamelessly show myself here. You go check out Brian_trolls with a Z on Twitter. I recently wrote a response to Paul Pooey's nonsense on WCN because I think he was deceptively manipulative enough, or successfully manipulative enough in the way he responded to JW to kind of discount the overall point he was making. And there was not enough technical pushback on his bullshit. So read this and ask me. Okay. I am definitely going to pass out after this. Read that and ask Paul why his only interaction with it so far is to like 2 tweets from an obvious sock puppet that has 700 plus tweets and only like half a dozen visible, instead of actually responding to any of the arguments I made. But on that note, I shamelessly self-shilled. I'm getting into the word salad phase of sleep deprivation. So I will see you all later. Toodaloo.
Later, everyone.
Here.